It was late when Maria moved into the old farmhouse on the outskirts of town. The house had been abandoned for years, and its creaking wood gave off a sense of unease. As she unloaded her bags from the car, a strange barking echoed from the nearby woods. She looked around, but saw nothing. The barking continued, but there was no dog in sight. The next few days were calm, with Maria settling into her new life. But every night, just as the sun set, the barking would start, always from the same direction. Maria would go to the window, but the dog was never there. The sound grew louder each night, as if it was right outside her door, but she never saw anything. One evening, Maria decided to follow the barking. She grabbed a flashlight and walked toward the woods behind the house. The deeper she went, the colder the air became, and the barking grew louder. Suddenly, she froze. Through the trees, she saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at her from the darkness. As Maria approached cautiously, the glowing eyes turned into the shape of a large dog. It was standing perfectly still, its coat matted and black, as if it hadn't been groomed in years. The dog let out a low growl and took a step forward. Maria felt a chill run down her spine, but something made her stay. Just as Maria was about to take another step forward, the dog turned and ran into the darkness, vanishing without a trace. The bark that had haunted her nights ceased abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Maria stood there, unsure of what she had just witnessed. The wind rustled through the trees, as though nothing had ever happened. The next day, Maria went into town to gather some information about the farmhouse. An elderly man at the local diner told her the house had a tragic past. Years ago, a family had lived there, but their dog disappeared one night, never to return. Some locals said the dog's ghost still roamed the woods, seeking revenge. That evening, an old woman stopped by the farmhouse as Maria was unpacking. "You shouldn't stay here," she warned, her voice trembling. "The dog? It's not just a dog. It's a spirit, cursed to haunt this land." Maria brushed it off as superstition, but the warning gnawed at her as she returned inside. The following morning, Maria found something disturbing. A large, wet paw print appeared on the front porch, though there was no sign of a dog nearby. It was as if something had walked there, leaving a trail of cold moisture behind. Maria bent down to examine it, but the moment her hand touched the print, the air grew inexplicably cold. That night, the barking returned. Louder, more frantic than ever before, echoing through the windows of Maria's bedroom. She tried to ignore it, but the sound seemed to vibrate in her chest. Every time the barking stopped, the house would creak and groan, as though something was moving inside. The next morning, Maria woke to find her bedroom window shattered, glass scattered across the floor. There was no sign of forced entry, and nothing else was disturbed. But the broken glass seemed to shimmer with an unnatural glow, as though it had been broken by something beyond the physical realm. Panic began to set in. That night, Maria could no longer ignore the growing terror. The door to her bedroom creaked open on its own, and she saw the dog once again, standing just inside the doorway. Its eyes were now a fiery red, and it growled low and menacingly. The air felt thick, like it was closing in on her. In the days that followed, Maria could feel an unseen presence following her. The dog's growls echoed in her ears, even when it wasn't there. At night, the shadows seemed to shift on their own, and she often heard scratching at her door, though nothing was ever there. Maria was losing her grip on reality. Desperate for answers, Maria searched the farmhouse attic. Among the dust and cobwebs, she found old journals from the previous owners. One entry stood out. The dog. It wasn't just a pet. It was a guardian bound to this land. When it died, it refused to leave. The words chilled Maria to the bone. The journals mentioned a ritual that could break the curse, but it was dangerous and required the presence of the dog's spirit. Maria, now desperate, decided to try it. She gathered the items the journal described, candles, incense, and a silver necklace, and set them up in the woods near the farmhouse. The ritual began. As the ritual began, the barking returned, louder than ever before. The dog appeared once again, but this time it wasn't just a shadow. It was solid, its fur black as night, and its eyes glowing like embers. The ground shook as it circled Maria, growling. It was more than just a dog. It was a creature of darkness. The dog spoke, its voice deep and distorted. I was the protector of this land, it growled. I was bound to defend it even in death. Maria realized that the curse wasn't just the dog's. She was part of it now. Her family's bloodline had ties to the land, and the dog's spirit was bound to protect it. The dog lunged at Maria, and she screamed, backing away. In an instant, the ground opened up beneath her feet, pulling her toward an abyss. The dog's eyes burned with fury as it tried to reach her, but Maria managed to break free. She stumbled backward, collapsing onto the forest floor, gasping for air. Maria found herself back in the farmhouse, shaken and covered in mud. As she lay on the floor, the old woman's words echoed in her mind. The dog isn't gone. It never leaves. She realized the curse was still alive, and breaking it would require more than just a ritual. It was a fight for survival. Maria decided to leave the farmhouse, but as she packed, the house seemed to close in on her. The walls rattled, and the shadows grew longer, like the house itself was refusing to let her go. She felt the cold presence of the dog following her, getting closer with each passing moment. At the front door, Maria turned the knob, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged through her as the dog's growls echoed in the distance. She could hear it getting closer, its footsteps thudding in the halls. She was trapped. Suddenly, the door creaked open on its own. As Maria stepped outside, the dog appeared before her once again, its eyes glowing with an unearthly light. It was no longer a simple animal. It was the embodiment of the curse, and it would follow her wherever she went. The dog began to chase her as she ran through the woods. Every time she thought she was safe, she would hear its growls just behind her. No matter how far she ran, it was always there, following her relentlessly. She could never escape. Maria disappeared into the woods, and the dog's presence was never felt again, at least not by human eyes. Locals say they still hear the barking at night, echoing through the trees, but no one dares to follow. The dog's curse lives on, waiting for the next soul to cross its path. Years later, a new family moved into the farmhouse. One evening, as they unpacked their belongings, a faint bark echoed in the air. The cycle had begun again, and the dog's spirit was ready to claim another victim. Thanks for watching, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for more new videos.